Whatever you put in front of your hook link can also have a huge impact on your results. Kevin discussed the importance of leads and leaders.
I think the lead itself is another element of your rig that can make a big difference, and it's worth experimenting and changing around. I think my views on leads: if you use a lead too heavy, they can use it to manipulate the hook link and twist the hook out. If you use a lead that's too light, you may not prick them deep enough to hold the hook in. I personally veered on the side of lightness, trying to find the optimum between a lead that will pull the hook in, but not a lead that's heavy enough for them to manipulate against. It seems to me that I have a kind of gut feeling that Carp condition themselves to leads around 3 and 4 ounces, and they're the ones they can get off easier, because I've had friends who've gone up to the extremes of 8 ounces of lead and had very good results, although I haven't tried it myself. One thing I've noticed that I'm utterly convinced about is that when a lead is locked in the bottom, I get less takes. So I tend to use the lightest lead possible that won't lock in the bottom when I cast out, or just as I unplug it, and then if I leave it a few seconds, it'll still slide back easily across the bottom. I think what's happening there, again, they're using the plugged in lead, to manoeuvre and get off the hook link. Basically, the denser the mass, the dumpier the lead, the more it's going to drive that hook in, initially pricking the carp. The longer the lead, if a carp picks it up, you're almost going to get like a pivot in action, and it's only going to be picking up one end, so not all the lead weight is coming into play. For that reason, I always try and use dumpy shaped, pear-shaped leads for the majority of my fishing, only using aerodynamic long-range leads for extreme casting distance. I was on a lake, in fact I wrote an article about it, where I watched carp coming in and the margin swim under a bush, and I swore it picked up on the lead, and that's what made it leave the swim. In fact, this happened cut several times, so I stripped the lead off and fished, if you like, free line. Same carp come in and straight away took the rig. So whether I was right or not, it's made me really spooky about leads and lead concealment, and I played around with various textures and colours, but then I hit on it that if you've got a textured lead, you can just openly camouflage it just by rubbing the clay or whatever at the bottom into it, providing it's like we design our leads now with a bobbly surface. All the mud on the bottom of the clay, just grip it. No better concealment than not seeing the lead at all. Speaking of leads, now I like to completely conceal them. The same applies to my line and that round the rig. Again, going back to Warmwell, I watched the carp one day, my baited area, swimming in circles. I could see the bottom mud and bubbles kicking up. It was going in perfect circles, in a diminishing circle, and I become convinced it was looking for the line, trying to pick the line up with its pecks or whatever. So I become absolutely focused on concealing my line, making sure it was buried on the bottom. At Warmwood I used anti-tangle tubing, so I used to put tungsten putty on the back, and that's where the flying back leads come from. I used a little Olivette type thing, slid it up the line so that when it hit the water, it come bouncing back up the line and lay the mono back hard on the bottom, well beyond the lead. Nowadays, on waters where you can't use leaders, I use our tungsten tubing. It's amazing stuff, really heavy, and it contours to the bottom fantastically. And when I'm on leaders, like our diffusion leaders, I put a little bit of tungsten at the back of them just to hold them well and truly hard on the bottom. It was with this big focus of line and tackle concealment that I started playing around with dyeing up the beads and leaders. In fact, the diffusion range took us 2 years, believe it or not, playing around with various dyes until we got this kind of translucency that seems to disappear on any lake bottom. I really don't get this thing about buying a black bead or a green bead to fish over weed, or a brown bead to fish over clay or gravel, because how can you guarantee when you cast it out that that specially selected bead is going to fall on the exact piece of bottom so it's camouflaged? But with our diffusion leaders and beads and that, it doesn't matter what bottom it lands on, it's perfectly camouflaged. It really is amazing. Look at this leader, just drop it in the margin, just disappears. I'm a massive fan of our diffusion leaders. In fact, I use them for the majority of my fishing, unless there's a leader ban where I have to use tube. One key element for me with leaders or tubes is the fact they protect the carp when they're burying in weed, stops the scale lift. Other advantages of diffusion leaders are the colossal abrasion resistance, far superior to lead core, and the fact you've got total line concealment on the bottom. In fact, if the sharp-eyed viewers of you who watched my DVD In Pursuit may have noticed, I had a fluoro leader, that's pre-diffusion colouring, so not as superior on one rod, and lead core on the other two. All the takes came to the fluoro leader rod. So we may think carp can't see our lead core, but they surely are.